Right now, as you are watching this, something unusual is happening. Not in a dramatic movie-style way, but in a quieter, deeper way that most people never notice until it has already passed. I've seen this pattern many times in my life, and every time it appears, it separates those who move forward from those who stay exactly where they are. The year 2026 is not an ordinary year. I know people say that about every new year, but this one is different, and I don't say that lightly. In traditional Chinese astrology, certain years act like turning points. They don't just bring new events, they change the speed at which life moves. 2026 is one of those years. It marks the arrival of the fire horse, a cycle that appears only once every 60 years. Most people will experience it only once in their lifetime, and many won't recognize its significance until years later, when they look back and say, that was the year everything shifted. What makes the fire horse so powerful is not luck in the way most people understand it. It's momentum, it's acceleration, it's the feeling that doors suddenly open, but only for those who are already moving. I've studied Chinese zodiac patterns, feng shui principles, and timing cycles for decades. And one thing has always been clear to me: wealth does not arrive randomly. Opportunity does not strike at equal strength every year. There are moments when the universe feels quiet and slow, and then there are moments when the energy surges forward like a rushing river. 2026 is a rushing river year. If you know how to step into it, it can carry you much further than effort alone ever could. If you resist it, it can feel overwhelming, chaotic, even punishing. This is why timing matters. Ancient systems like Chinese astrology were never created to predict the future in a mystical sense. They were developed to help people act at the right moment. Farmers used them to decide when to plant and harvest. Leaders used them to choose when to expand or retreat. Merchants used them to understand when risk would be rewarded and when caution would preserve wealth. These systems survived for thousands of years because they worked not symbolically, but practically. One of the biggest misunderstandings I see today is the belief that wealth is purely material. In traditional Chinese wisdom, wealth has always been understood as energy before it becomes money. Money is just the visible form of something that moves invisibly first. Like wind, you don't see it, but you see what it moves. When the energy is right, money flows naturally. When the energy is blocked or mistimed, even the smartest people struggle. This is where feng shui and the Chinese zodiac intersect. Feng shui works with space. Astrology works with time. Wealth happens when space, time, and action align. Miss one of these, and you feel like you're pushing uphill. Align all three, and suddenly things feel easier, not effortless, but supported. Now, let's talk about luck. Because this is where many people get confused. In Western thinking, luck is often treated as something random. You either have it or you don't. You win the lottery or you don't. But in Chinese philosophy, luck is not passive. The word often translated as luck is yun, and embedded in that word is the idea of movement. Luck favors motion. Luck favors those who are already in action. Here's something I want you to think about carefully. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to get lucky again and again, while others wait their entire lives for a break that never comes? That's not coincidence. That's preparation meeting timing. When the energy shifts, and it always does, those who are ready experience it as luck. Those who are not experience it as pressure. Before I go further, I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly in the comments below, because your response will tell you a lot about where you are right now. When you think about the next 2 years, do you feel more excited or more uncertain? Don't overthink it. Just notice your instinctive reaction and share it. That reaction is already revealing how aligned you are with the coming energy, Now let me explain why the fire horse year amplifies everything. Fire is the element of transformation. It destroys what is outdated and gives energy to what is alive. Fire brings speed, visibility, courage, and risk. The horse, in Chinese symbolism, represents movement, freedom, independence, and momentum. When these two forces combine, the result is not subtle. The fire horse does not reward hesitation. It does not favor those who wait for perfect conditions. It responds to clarity, confidence, and decisive action. This is why some people thrive in fire years while others feel burned by them. In my experience, fire horse years tend to expose truths very quickly. Careers that are stagnant suddenly become unbearable. Businesses that are misaligned collapse or force reinvention. Relationships that lack honesty reach breaking points. At the same time, ideas that have been waiting in the background suddenly demand expression. People who have been playing small feel an inner pressure to step forward or step aside. Wealth in 2026 will move like fire itself. It will flow toward those who are clear about what they want, willing to move quickly, and confident enough to act without needing constant reassurance. Money will not reward confusion this year. It will not respond well to fear disguised as caution. But for those who align with its rhythm, it can feel almost magnetic. This brings us to an important concept: resonance. Not all zodiac signs interact with the fire horse energy in the same way. Some signs naturally resonate with speed, risk, and visibility. For them, 2026 can feel like a tailwind. Others are more cautious, reflective, or stability-oriented. For them, the same energy can feel uncomfortable, like being pushed out of a safe harbor into open water. But here is something most people misunderstand. Misalignment does not mean misfortune. In Chinese astrology, resistance is often where growth happens. When a year challenges your natural tendencies, it forces you to develop new strengths. Some signs will grow wealth by expanding aggressively. Others will grow wealth by learning restraint, focus, or adaptability. The fire horse doesn't treat everyone the same, but it treats everyone fairly according to how they respond. This is why I don't believe in destiny as something fixed. I believe in cycles, I believe in choice, and I believe that understanding timing gives you power. As we move deeper into this video, I'm going to break down which zodiac signs naturally align with the fire horse energy, which ones need to be more strategic, and how each group can position themselves for financial growth instead of burnout or regret. Some of what I'll share may surprise you, especially if you've always assumed your sign was either lucky or unlucky. So stay with me, because the most important insight about 2026 isn't about prediction, it's about preparation. And the people who prepare now will experience the fire horse not as chaos, but as opportunity. Number 8. Tiger Bold leadership meets the fire horse current. If you were born in a tiger year, I want you to listen to this carefully, because what's coming in 2026 will feel familiar to you in a way that's almost unsettling. Not because it's easy, but because it activates something you've carried your entire life. Tiger years include 1962, 1974, 1986, 1998, 2010, and 2022. That means tigers exist across every living generation right now. Gen X tigers who've spent years proving themselves. Millennial tigers who feel restless and underutilized. Gen Z tigers who already sense they're meant for more. Gen Alpha tigers just entering the world with intensity. No one is left out of this cycle. The fire horse energy meets each tiger where they are. In Chinese astrology, the tiger is not subtle. It never has been. Tigers are born with an instinct for leadership, even if they don't consciously seek it. I've worked with tigers for decades, and one pattern shows up again and again. They're often placed in positions where someone has to step forward, and eventually, that someone becomes them. What makes 2026 different is how strongly the firehorse amplifies this trait. Firehorse years reward visibility, they reward courage, they reward people who are willing to be seen making decisions instead of hiding behind comfort or routine. For tigers, this feels like oxygen. You don't need to be taught boldness, you already have it. What this year does is turn the volume up. But here's the detail most people miss, and this is where tigers either grow wealthy or burn out. Firehorse years don't reward reckless risk. They reward decisive risk, paired with wisdom. This is crucial. Tigers often get labeled as impulsive, but that's not actually true. What I've observed is that tigers move quickly once clarity arrives. The problem is when clarity hasn't fully formed yet. In 2026, opportunities will come fast. Promotions, business ideas, leadership roles, investments, public recognition, they won't knock politely. They'll appear suddenly, often when you weren't actively looking. In daily life, this might look like a conversation that unexpectedly turns into an offer, a project no one else wants that suddenly becomes high stakes, a chance to step up because someone else hesitated, a moment where you realize staying quiet is riskier than speaking. For tigers, wealth this year is closely tied to visibility. You don't grow by staying in the background in 2026. Even if that's been your survival strategy before, this year pushes you forward. People notice you more. Your words carry weight. Your presence feels stronger, sometimes even intimidating to others. And yes, that can be uncomfortable. I've seen many tigers struggle with this paradox, wanting recognition but also wanting peace, wanting leadership but resenting responsibility. In firehorse years, the universe doesn't allow that contradiction to sit unresolved. You're asked to choose. This is where tiger wealth is forged. Let me share something practical and very real. Tigers often experience financial growth through advancement, not slow accumulation. Raises, promotions, leadership bonuses, scaling a business, being entrusted with bigger budgets or decisions. This is how tiger money grows. In 2026, those opportunities increase, but only if you're willing to step into the role fully. And here's the interesting part. People around you will expect you to lead more this year. Even if you don't volunteer, even if you stay quiet. Tigers have an energetic authority that becomes more obvious under firehorse conditions. This is why some tigers suddenly find themselves resented or admired without changing anything consciously. The energy shifts how others perceive you. The danger for tigers in 2026 is not failure, it's overextension. Firehorse energy moves fast, tigers like speed. Combine the two, and suddenly everything feels urgent. I've seen tigers say yes to too many responsibilities, too many risks, too many investments, simply because they can. But wealth doesn't come from doing everything. It comes from doing the right things at the right moment. Here's a grounding question every tiger should ask before major decisions this year. Is this aligned with where I want to be in 3 years or just exciting right now? That single pause can save you from costly detours. For Gen X tigers, this year often brings a second peak, an opportunity to reclaim authority, influence, or financial standing that may have plateaued. For millennial tigers, it's often the year you stop waiting for permission and realize you already earned your place. For Gen Z tigers, it can feel like being pushed onto a stage earlier than expected, but that early exposure can shape your entire future. And yes, even younger tigers feel this energy indirectly through parents, environments, and accelerated expectations. One more authentic detail most people won't tell you: tigers often attract wealth through conflict they didn't start. Someone else backs out, someone else fails to decide, someone else hesitates, and suddenly you're the only one willing to act. In 2026, those moments multiply. The key is responding with confidence, not aggression. Leadership in this year is quiet certainty, not dominance. If you're a tiger, pay attention to how often people ask for your opinion, your approval, or your decision in 2026. That's not coincidence. That's alignment. I'm curious, and be honest in the comments below, because this helps everyone watching. Have you already noticed people expecting more from you lately, even before 2026 has fully arrived? As we move up this list, the energy intensifies. Tiger is only number 8, and yet already powerful. The signs ahead experience this flow even more strongly, but in very different ways, some through strategy, some through precision, some through sheer momentum. Stay with me, because the next sign surprises almost everyone, and if you've ever felt underestimated, what's coming next may explain why that's about to change. Number 7. Snake intelligent patience in a fast fire year. If you were born in a snake year, this part of the video is especially important for you, because your relationship with money, opportunity, and timing works very differently from most people around you. And in a year like 2026, that difference can either become your greatest advantage or your biggest frustration, depending on how well you understand it. Snake years include 1953, 1965, 1977, 1989, 2001, 2013, and 2025. That means some of you are already highly experienced. Some are in the middle of building your professional identity. Some are just stepping into independence, and some are still absorbing the world quietly. No matter your age, the snake energy expresses itself in remarkably consistent ways. One thing I've learned after decades of studying Chinese astrology is this: snakes are almost never rushed on the inside, even when the world around them is chaotic. You may move slowly, but you see deeply. You notice patterns others miss. You understand people before they understand themselves. And in firehorse years, when everything seems to be moving too fast, this becomes extraordinarily valuable. While other signs feel pressure to act immediately in 2026, the snake's strength lies in knowing when not to move. This is not hesitation. This is intelligent patience. In daily life, this often shows up in subtle ways. Snakes are usually the ones who read the room before speaking. You wait to see who actually holds power, rather than who talks the loudest. You observe which opportunities are real and which are inflated by hype. You don't chase attention, yet people often come to you quietly for advice, insight, or clarity when things feel uncertain. Here's an interesting fact. Many people don't realize, in traditional Chinese thought, the snake is associated with hidden intelligence and strategic survival. In ancient times, snake energy was considered essential in unstable periods because it preserved resources while others wasted them. That's why snakes often build wealth slowly but securely, layer by layer, rather than through dramatic wins. In 2026, this becomes your edge. The firehorse year creates speed, noise, and urgency. Markets move quickly, careers shift suddenly, people make promises they can't keep. In that environment, trust becomes currency. And snakes are natural trust builders, not through charisma, but through consistency and discretion. I've noticed something very specific when working with snake clients over the years. People trust you with sensitive information, financial decisions, strategic concerns, long-term plans. This is not accidental. Your energy signals reliability and foresight. And in 2026, those qualities are rewarded quietly, not publicly, but often more profitably. This is why snake wealth in 2026 comes from positioning, not rushing. You may not be the first to jump into a new role, investment, or opportunity, but you're often the one who enters after the weaknesses are revealed and the structure is clearer. That timing protects your resources. It also allows you to negotiate from a position of strength, rather than desperation. But there is a shadow side I need to address honestly. Some snakes confuse patience with safety. They wait so long for the perfect moment that good opportunities pass them by. In Firehorse years, this can be costly not because you made a mistake, but because you didn't move when the window was open. The difference is subtle but critical. Ask yourself this when opportunities appear in 2026. Am I waiting because my instincts say not yet, or because I'm afraid of exposure? Fear-based waiting feels heavy. Intuitive waiting feels calm. One of the most authentic ways this plays out in everyday life is invisibility. Snakes tend to work behind the scenes. You don't enjoy being watched while you're still refining something. But in 2026, complete invisibility can limit your financial growth. People can't reward what they don't see. This doesn't mean becoming loud or promotional. It means selective visibility, speaking when your insight adds value, allowing your results to be known by the right people, letting decision-makers associate your name with clarity and reliability. Another important detail about snake wealth, reputation compounds. I've seen snakes receive opportunities years after doing the work that earned them. Someone remembers how you handled a situation, how you kept a confidence, how you delivered without drama. In Firehorse years, when others damage their credibility by moving too fast or over-promising, the snake's steady reputation becomes more valuable than ever. Financially, this often shows up as being trusted with long-term roles or contracts being consulted before major decisions being offered stable income, rather than volatile rewards being invited into inner circles rather than public competition. This might not look exciting from the outside, but it builds durable wealth. Here's something I want every snake to hear clearly. You are not late. Many snakes feel like life moves faster for others. They see people rise quickly, earn quickly, gain attention quickly. And sometimes you wonder if you're falling behind. In reality, you're building something harder to shake. In 2026, that foundation matters more than speed. Timing is your ally this year, but only if you trust yourself enough to act when your moment arrives. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely want you to answer it in the comments, because it reveals more than you think. Have you ever had a situation where you waited, watched, and then moved at exactly the right moment, and it worked out better than if you had rushed? As we continue moving up this list, the energy shifts again. The next sign experiences wealth through loyalty and moral strength, something completely different from snake strategy, yet just as powerful in 2026. Stay with me, because understanding how each sign wins in this year is the key to making the Firehorse work for you instead of against you. Number 6. Goat, turning self-expression into real wealth. If you were born in a goat year, this section may feel uncomfortably accurate in the best possible way. Goat years include 1955, 1967, 1979, 1991, 2003, 2015, and 2027, which means this energy shows up in people at every stage of life right now. And no matter when you were born, the goat carries one of the most misunderstood wealth signatures in the Chinese Zodiac. I say misunderstood because goats are often described as gentle, artistic, or sensitive, and people stop there. What they don't talk about enough is that goats are natural value creators. You see beauty where others see noise. You feel emotional undercurrents others ignore. You instinctively know when something is off, whether it's a product, a conversation, or a business decision. That sensitivity is not a weakness. In 2026, it becomes a currency. Here's an interesting fact from traditional Chinese astrology. The goat is associated with cultivated refinement. Historically, goat energy was linked to artisans, Healers, designers, teachers, and advisors, the people who made life meaningful, not just functional. When societies entered periods of rapid change, goat energy became essential because it restored balance and human connection. That's exactly why the Firehorse year creates opportunity for you. Firehorse energy accelerates everything. Systems move faster, expectations rise, burnout increases. In that environment, people don't just want speed, they want resonance. They want experiences that feel right. They want work that feels thoughtful, humane, and intentional. This is where goats quietly step into wealth. Your financial growth in 2026 is tied directly to self-expression. Not expression for attention, but expression for value. When you suppress your perspective to fit into rigid systems, you feel drained and underpaid. When you allow your voice, taste, intuition, or creativity to guide what you offer, money starts to follow in unexpected ways. In daily life, this shows up very practically. Goats often improve things without being asked. You refine processes. You soften harsh environments. You make work feel more human. But here's the hard truth I've seen again and again. Many goats give away this value for free. You might hear yourself saying things like, "It's not a big deal, I just helped a little. I enjoy doing it, so I don't need to charge more. I don't want to make things awkward by talking about money." In 2026, that pattern has to change. Monetizing creativity doesn't mean becoming aggressive or transactional. It means recognizing that your intuition saves time, money, and emotional energy for others. That has real economic value. Here's something many people don't realize. Goats often sense problems before they become expensive. You feel when a project is off track. You notice when morale is slipping. You recognize when a product doesn't align with its audience. When you speak up early, you prevent losses others can't even see yet. That foresight is worth paying for. The Firehorse year encourages visibility, but for goats, visibility must be selective and aligned. You don't thrive by shouting louder. You thrive by standing firmly in your identity and letting the right people find you. This is especially important when it comes to partnerships. Goats are naturally collaborative. You do your best work when you feel emotionally safe and creatively supported. In 2026, partnerships become a major wealth channel for you, but only if they're balanced. One-sided collaborations drain you. Equal partnerships amplify you. An authentic sign of a healthy partnership for a goat is this: you feel energized after working together, not depleted. Your ideas are respected, not dismissed. Your contributions are acknowledged, not absorbed by others without credit. And this leads directly to pricing confidence. Goats often struggle with pricing not because they lack skill, but because they associate money with discomfort. They worry about being misunderstood, rejected, or seen as selfish. But pricing is not a moral statement. It's a boundary. In 2026, the Firehorse energy supports goats who finally draw that boundary. A practical shift you may notice this year is a growing discomfort with undercharging. Something inside you starts to resist giving your best work without fair exchange. That's not greed. That's alignment. I've watched many goats experience a financial breakthrough not by doing more, but by charging appropriately for what they already do well. Sometimes the first price increase feels terrifying and then surprisingly easy. The right people say yes, the wrong people disappear, and suddenly work feels lighter and income feels more stable. Here's a subtle but powerful detail. Goats attract wealth through emotional intelligence. In 2026, as others rush and burn bridges, your ability to create trust, warmth, and aesthetic coherence becomes rare. People pay more for what feels intentional and well-crafted. Whether that's in design, teaching, wellness, leadership, service, or creative work, your signature matters. Before we move on, I want to ask you something. Take a moment and be honest in the comments, because this question reveals where your next level of wealth is hiding. Have you ever been told that something you do just comes naturally, while you secretly know it took years to develop? That's the thing you're meant to value more highly. As we continue through this list, you'll see how each sign accesses wealth differently. Some through discipline, some through precision, some through bold expansion. Goats do it through meaning, beauty, and connection. And when you finally allow yourself to be paid for that, the fire horse year stops feeling overwhelming and starts feeling supportive. Stay with me. The next sign builds wealth in a completely different way, and understanding that contrast will help you recognize your own strengths even more clearly. Number 5. Ox building wealth that doesn't collapse if you were born in an ox year. This part of the video is for you, and I want you to listen closely because ox wealth is often invisible while it's being built, and misunderstood by people who only notice results after the fact. Ox years include 1949, 1961, 1973, 1985, 1997, 2009, and 2021, which means ox energy exists in every household, every workplace, every generation alive today. No one is excluded from this pattern. In Chinese astrology, the ox represents foundation, not excitement, not speed. Foundation. And here's something most people don't realize. In traditional agrarian China, the ox was the single most valuable asset a family could own. Not because it was flashy, but because everything depended on it. Food, stability, survival. Wealth didn't grow without the ox doing the quiet, repetitive work day after day. That symbolism matters, especially in fast, chaotic periods, because when the world speeds up, the ox becomes essential. Ox wealth is built through disciplined accumulation. You don't rely on luck, you don't depend on trends, you build brick by brick, decision by decision, habit by habit. And while others may rise faster for short periods, ox wealth is the kind that lasts when cycles turn. In everyday life, this shows up in ways you may not even recognize as strengths. Ox people tend to finish what they start, take responsibility seriously, stay consistent, even when motivation drops. Think in terms of years, not weeks. This doesn't make you exciting to watch, but it makes you reliable to depend on. And in times of instability, reliability becomes extremely valuable. One interesting detail from traditional Chinese teachings is that the ox is associated with earth energy at its most stable form. Earth doesn't move quickly, but it holds everything else up. In financial terms, this means ox individuals often create wealth by supporting systems, not chasing opportunities. You might be the person who keeps operations running while others experiment. You might manage resources carefully while others overspend. You might be the one people trust with long-term responsibilities, budgets, or processes because they know you won't cut corners. This is not accidental. In chaotic environments, economic shifts, workplace changes, unpredictable leadership, the ox becomes an anchor. And anchors attract reward, even if it happens quietly. Ox wealth grows through systems. You don't just work hard, you structure your effort. You create routines, workflows, schedules, and standards. While others rely on bursts of energy, you rely on consistency. Over time, that consistency compounds. Here's an authentic truth I've observed many times. Ox individuals often underestimate how much value they create because their work feels normal to them. You show up, you do the job. You handle what needs to be handled. But when you're gone, things fall apart, and that's when people realize how essential you were. Financially, this translates into stability during chaos. When markets fluctuate, ox people are less likely to panic. When organizations restructure, you're often retained or repositioned because leadership knows you're dependable. When others burn out, you endure. That endurance is not passive, it's strategic. There is a challenge I need to address honestly, because it can limit Ox wealth if left unchecked. Ox individuals often assume that effort alone guarantees reward. You believe that if you keep your head down and do good work, recognition will eventually arrive. Sometimes that's true, but sometimes, especially in modern systems, value must be articulated, not just demonstrated. This doesn't mean self-promotion. It means visibility with integrity. In daily life, this might look like clearly documenting what you've built, tracking results, or calmly stating your contribution when decisions are being made. The Ox who learns to combine discipline with communication experiences a noticeable shift in financial outcomes. Another interesting fact, Ox energy is deeply aligned with sustainable growth. You're not built for extremes, either extreme risk or extreme stagnation. You do best when growth is steady, predictable, and supported by structure. This is why Ox individuals often succeed in operations and management, finance, logistics and infrastructure, long-term investments businesses that serve real, ongoing needs. You don't chase novelty. You invest in what lasts. And here's something subtle but powerful. Ox people often build wealth indirectly. You may not be the face of a project, but you're the reason it functions. You may not take credit, but your fingerprints are everywhere. Over time, this creates a reputation that opens doors, quietly rolls with security, trust-based income, and long-term influence. However, endurance has limits. One of the most common mistakes I see Ox individuals make is overworking without recalibration. Because you can carry heavy loads, you sometimes do long past the point where adjustment is needed. But sustainable wealth requires sustainable energy. Rest is not laziness for the Ox, it's maintenance. When you pause to assess systems, what's working, what's draining you, what can be improved, you protect your long-term earning capacity. The Ox who refines systems, instead of simply pushing harder, becomes far more profitable over time. Before we move on, I want to ask you something, and I encourage you to answer honestly in the comments because it often sparks recognition in others watching. Have you ever realized that things only run smoothly when you're involved, even if no one says it out loud? That awareness is the beginning of claiming your true value. As we continue upward on this list, the energy shifts again. The next sign builds wealth through sharp awareness and precise execution, very different from Ox endurance, yet equally powerful when understood correctly. Stay with me. Understanding how each sign builds wealth helps you recognize not just how to earn more, but how to do it without breaking yourself in the process. Number 4. Rooster, turning clarity into real results. If you were born in a Rooster year, there's a good chance people have described you as sharp, direct, or detail-oriented at some point in your life. Rooster years include 1957, 1969, 1981, 1993, 2005, and 2017, which means this energy shows up in people of all ages, in every type of role and profession. And no matter when you were born, Rooster energy has one defining strength that quietly shapes your relationship with wealth: clarity. In Chinese astrology, the rooster is associated with precision and awakening. Traditionally, the rooster's crow marked the beginning of the day, signaling that it was time to wake up, organize, and act. That symbolism matters more than people realize. Roosters are natural clarifiers. You see what's wrong, what's missing, and what needs to be fixed long before others do. And in real life, that shows up constantly. You notice inefficiencies that everyone else tolerates. You see flaws in plans that others are excited about. You can take vague ideas and turn them into something structured and workable. This is not negativity, it's discernment. and when applied correctly becomes a powerful source of wealth. One interesting detail from traditional Chinese teachings is that rooster energy is linked with metal, an element associated with refinement, tools, and precision. Metal doesn't create chaos, it shapes it. In financial terms, this means roosters excel when they are allowed to define, refine, and execute. Your wealth doesn't come from dreaming bigger than everyone else. It comes from making ideas real. In daily life, rooster wealth often appears when you're given responsibility for outcomes rather than just concepts. You're the person who takes a plan and asks, who's doing what, by when, with which resources? While others enjoy brainstorming, you enjoy completion, and in systems that reward results, that's invaluable. But here's something important and very honest that I've seen over and over again. Roosters are often underpaid early on because they make things look easy. When you bring order to chaos, people forget how chaotic it was before you stepped in. They see the clean result, not the complexity you navigated to get there. This is why visibility matters for you, but not in the loud, attention-seeking way people often imagine. Visibility for roosters comes through expertise. When you explain something clearly, people listen. When you break down a complex issue into simple steps, trust grows. Over time, your clarity becomes associated with reliability. And reliability, in financial systems, leads to opportunity. An authentic pattern I've observed is this: roosters often become the person others rely on when stakes are high. Deadlines, deliverables, decisions that can't afford mistakes. Even if you're not the most charismatic person in the room, you're often the one people quietly want involved when things matter. And that's where your financial leverage grows. However, there's a challenge roosters face that can limit wealth if not addressed. You tend to assume that if something is obvious to you, it should be obvious to others. When they don't see it, frustration builds. You might correct people, refine their work, or step in to fix things yourself rather than explaining your process. Over time, this can make your contribution feel invisible rather than essential. In wealth terms, that means your impact isn't always fully recognized. The shift for roosters comes when you learn to teach your clarity, not just apply it. When you articulate how you see problems and why your approach works, people begin to value your mind, not just your output. This is why roosters often succeed when they lead projects or teams, create systems others rely on, offer analysis, guidance, or technical skill, position themselves as specialists rather than general helpers. Another interesting fact: roosters are naturally alert to timing. Just like the rooster announces the morning, you instinctively know when something is late, rushed, or premature. This sensitivity to timing allows you to avoid costly mistakes, both financial and professional. In practical terms, this means you often save money or resources simply by preventing errors before they happen. That prevention has real value, even if it's harder to measure than dramatic wins. But here's where curiosity comes in, and where I want you to pay attention. Many roosters sit on a deeper level of expertise than they realize. You may have spent years refining a skill, solving similar problems, or improving processes without labeling it as a specialty. Because it feels natural to you, you underestimate it. But for others, what you know is rare. Ask yourself this: if someone new had to do what I do every day, how long would it take them to reach my level of competence? The answer to that question is often the key to unlocking higher income. Rooster wealth grows when clarity meets confidence, not arrogance confidence. Confidence to say, this is what I'm good at, and this is why it works. When you do that, the right kind of visibility follows. People don't just see what you do, they understand why you matter. Before we move on, I want to ask you something, and I invite you to answer it in the comments because it helps others recognize themselves too. Have you ever fixed a problem so thoroughly that people forgot it was ever a problem? That's Rooster energy in action. As we continue upward, the signs ahead interact with wealth in more dynamic and expansive ways. But the Rooster's power is unique. It turns thought into structure, and structure into results. Stay with me. Understanding how each sign creates value helps you recognize where your own leverage truly lies, and how to use it without wasting energy. Number 3. Rat financial intelligence in motion. If you were born in a rat year, you may have noticed something about yourself long before anyone else pointed it out. You think about money differently. Not emotionally, not impulsively, strategically. Rat years include 1948, 1960, 1972, 1984, 1996, 2008, and 2020, which means this pattern appears in people at every life stage, from those managing households and careers to those just beginning to understand independence and value. In Chinese astrology, the rat holds a special position. It is the first sign of the zodiac, not because it is the strongest, but because it is the most alert. Traditionally, the rat represents survival intelligence, the ability to sense opportunity, detect risk early, and move quickly when conditions shift. This makes rats naturally attuned to financial flow. One fascinating historical detail is that in old Chinese merchant culture, rat energy was admired. Traders associated with rat characteristics were known for spotting price changes before markets reacted, storing resources when others wasted them, and navigating uncertainty with agility rather than force. That legacy still shows up today. In everyday life, this intelligence appears subtly. Rats tend to notice where money leaks before others do. You pick up on inefficiencies, unnecessary expenses, or weak deals almost instinctively. While others focus on how much they earn, you focus on how money moves. That alone gives you an advantage. Rat wealth thrives on speed and awareness. You are quick to recognize trends, quick to adjust plans, and quick to test ideas. This doesn't mean reckless action, it means informed movement. When something stops working, you don't cling to it out of pride. You pivot. When an opportunity emerges, you don't wait for perfect certainty. You gather just enough information to act, then refine as you go. This is why rats often create wealth through multiple income streams. Not because you're greedy, but because you understand resilience. You don't feel comfortable depending on a single source of income. Even if you have one main role or business, you're often exploring side path skills that could be monetized, investments that could grow, connections that could open doors later. In daily life, this might look like turning a skill into consulting or freelance work, running a small venture alongside a primary responsibility, investing time in learning financial systems others avoid, building networks that lead to unexpected opportunities. To outsiders, this can look scattered, but from the inside, it's strategic redundancy. Here's an authentic truth about rats that many people miss. You are not driven by money itself, you are driven by options. Money represents flexibility, security, and freedom to move when conditions change. That's why rats often feel anxious when boxed into rigid systems with no exit strategy. Another interesting fact from traditional astrology is that rats are associated with water energy, specifically flowing water. Water adapts to terrain. It doesn't resist obstacles, it finds ways around them. Financially, this means rats do best when they're allowed to move, adapt, and reallocate resources quickly. But there is a shadow side that needs honest attention. Because you see so many possibilities, focus can become your biggest challenge. Rats sometimes chase too many ideas at once, spreading energy thin. You might start something promising, then notice another opportunity and shift before the first one fully matures. Speed without focus can dilute results. The rats who build the most wealth learn to prioritize intelligently. You don't need to pursue every opportunity, just the ones that align with your longer-term objectives. When you choose carefully, your speed becomes a multiplier instead of a distraction. One practical pattern I've observed: rats do best when they designate a core stream and one or two secondary streams, rather than juggling many at once. This structure preserves your adaptability while preventing burnout. Another strength worth highlighting is your social awareness. Rats are often excellent readers of people. You sense intentions quickly. You know who has influence, who has information, and who can be trusted. In financial terms, this means many of your best opportunities come through conversations rather than formal channels. A casual mention, a shared idea, a connection introduced at the right moment. You understand that wealth often travels through people before it shows up as money. Here's something subtle but important. Rats often make decisions faster than those around them, and that can create friction. Others may accuse you of being impatient or opportunistic. But what they don't see is the calculation behind your moves. You're not gambling, you're responding to timing. The key is learning when to explain your thinking and when to simply act. Before we move on, I want you to pause and consider this question, and I encourage you to answer it in the comments because it helps others recognize themselves too. Have you ever changed direction quickly and later realized it saved you time, money, or stress, even if others didn't understand at the moment? That instinct is one of your greatest assets. As we approach the top of this list, the energy becomes even more intense. The next sign operates on a different level, entirely combining vision, authority, and momentum in a way that reshapes environments rather than simply navigating them. Stay with me. Understanding how each sign engages with wealth isn't just interesting, it helps you recognize which instincts to trust, which to refine, and how to move forward with clarity instead of doubt. Number 2. Dragon. When power meets perfect timing. If you were born in a dragon year, there is something I want you to understand before anything else. Your relationship with opportunity has never been ordinary. Dragon years include 1952, 1964, 1976, 1988, 2000 and 2012, which means this energy exists across every stage of life right now. Some dragons are seasoned leaders, some are building momentum quietly, some are just beginning to sense their potential, but none of you are insignificant in the larger pattern. In Chinese astrology, the dragon is not just another animal sign. It is the only mythical one. That distinction matters. Dragons were never meant to survive quietly. They were symbols of authority, vision, and mandate. In ancient China, emperors were associated with dragon energy because it represented the ability to shape reality rather than merely respond to it. And this is where things get interesting. When dragon energy aligns strongly with a fire horse cycle, something rare happens. Fire amplifies presence, horse amplifies movement. Dragon already carries power and visibility. Together, these forces create momentum with consequence. This is not background energy. This is spotlight energy. I've watched dragons my entire life, and there is a consistent pattern. You don't struggle because you lack ability, you struggle because your scale is often mismatched with your environment. You feel constrained in systems that reward compliance over initiative. You sense when something could be bigger, bolder, more impactful, even if you can't yet explain how. That instinct is not imagination, it's alignment. In daily life, dragon energy often shows up early. People notice you. They react to your presence, your ideas, your confidence, sometimes positively, sometimes defensively. Dragons tend to trigger reactions because you reflect possibility, and not everyone is comfortable with that. Here's an interesting historical fact. Many people don't know, in traditional Chinese thought, dragons were associated with heaven luck, a form of fortune that comes not from effort alone, but from alignment with timing and purpose. Heaven luck does not reward passivity, it responds to movement. When a dragon acts decisively, conditions tend to rearrange. That's why dragons often experience moments in life that feel almost unreal, being offered roles they didn't formally apply for, meeting influential people at precisely the right time, watching stalled situations suddenly move forward after one bold decision. From the outside, this looks like luck. From the inside, it feels like inevitability. But here is the part that requires maturity, and this is where many dragons either rise or repeat cycles. Heaven luck activates only when you step forward. Dragons who wait for perfect certainty feel frustrated. Dragons who hide their ambition to avoid conflict feel blocked. The energy responds to leadership, not hesitation. Leadership for a dragon does not always mean managing people. It means claiming authority over direction, saying, "This is where we're going, this is what matters, this is worth building." When dragons align with that role, scale follows, scale in wealth, scale in influence, scale in responsibility, and yes, scale can be intimidating. Many dragons secretly fear that if they fully step into their capacity, they'll lose balance, relationships, or peace. That fear is understandable. Dragon energy is powerful. It changes environments. It demands accountability. But avoiding scale doesn't create peace. It creates stagnation. In practical, everyday terms, dragon wealth often comes from expansion, not optimization. You are not here to fine-tune small systems forever. You are here to grow them, extend them, or replace them with something larger. This can look like taking leadership in moments others avoid, expanding a role beyond its original limits, building something that affects more people than expected, speaking publicly or decisively when silence would be safer. And here's an authentic detail many dragons will recognize. When you act in alignment, resistance fades quickly. Opposition that seemed intimidating dissolves. Support appears from unexpected places. This is heaven luck responding to motion. However, there is a shadow side that must be addressed honestly. Dragon confidence can sometimes outrun infrastructure. I've seen dragons leap before ensuring systems, teams, or resources are ready to support expansion. Fire energy encourages boldness, but unchecked boldness creates instability. True dragon mastery lies in pairing vision with execution. Leadership is not just declaring direction, it's sustaining it. This is why the dragons who thrive long-term learn to build support structures around their ambition. Advisors, collaborators, grounded processes. When you do this, your influence multiplies without burning you out. Another subtle but powerful truth: dragons shape environments even when they don't intend to. Your mood affects rooms. Your approval carries weight. Your disengagement is noticed. This means your awareness matters more than you think. Wealth for dragons often grows through impact, not effort. The more people your decisions positively affect, the more opportunity flows back to you. This is why dragons often feel dissatisfied with purely transactional success. Money without meaning feels empty to you. Before we move on, I want to ask you something, and I strongly encourage you to answer it in the comments, because it often unlocks self-recognition. Have you ever noticed that when you fully commit to a direction, things move faster than expected, even if the beginning felt uncertain? That's not coincidence. That's alignment. As we reach the final position on this list, the energy becomes even more concentrated. The next sign operates at the very edge of momentum, timing, and decisive power. Stay with me because understanding how the top sign works will help you recognize whether you're meant to lead from the front or activate success in a completely different way. Number 1. Dog, the quiet power that wins last. If you were born in a dog year, I want you to stay with me for this one, because dog wealth is rarely obvious at the beginning and almost undeniable at the end. Dog years include 1958, 1970, 1982, 1994, 2006, and 2018, which means this energy lives in people who are building, rebuilding, mentoring, protecting, leading households, teams, and entire systems right now. No one sits outside this pattern. I've studied the Chinese Zodiac for a long time, and I'll tell you something most people don't expect. The dog does not win by chasing opportunity. The dog wins by becoming indispensable. In traditional Chinese symbolism, the dog is the guardian. Not the attacker, not the showpiece, the one who watches the gate, senses danger before it arrives, and stays when others leave. That role may not sound glamorous, but historically, guardians controlled access, continuity, and survival. And those who control continuity ultimately control wealth. Here's an interesting fact from classical Chinese thinking. During unstable periods, dog energy was considered more valuable than raw power. Why? Because when systems break down, people look for someone they can rely on without supervision. That person becomes the anchor. In modern life, this shows up in very real ways. Dogs are often the ones trusted with responsibilities that can't fail. You're the person people call when things go wrong, the one who steps in quietly during transitions, the one who keeps standards intact when shortcuts tempt everyone else. You may not seek authority, but authority finds you. Dog wealth grows through trust concentration. The more people trust you with important things, money, decisions, timing, care, the more influence you accumulate. That influence doesn't always announce itself loudly, but it changes outcomes. In daily life, you may notice patterns like being given control over processes others mishandle, being asked to oversee, approve, or safeguard resources, being relied on during conflicts because you're fair, being chosen not for flash, but for dependability. What's fascinating is that dogs often underestimate how rare this is. Many people can talk. Few people can be trusted when pressure rises. And pressure always rises eventually. Here's where dog wealth becomes different from every other sign at the top. You don't build wealth by expanding fast. You don't build it by taking the loudest risks. You build it by outlasting volatility. This is why dog individuals often experience a delayed but powerful financial arc. Early on, you may feel overlooked. You watch others leap ahead, gain attention, make bold moves. But when those systems crack, and many do, you're still standing, still solvent, still trusted. There's a reason dogs are often present in roles involving contracts, ethics, compliance, quality control, care, law, security, finance, stewardship, and long-term service. These roles don't explode overnight, but they compound, and compounding is the dog's secret weapon. Another authentic detail I've observed repeatedly: dogs have a natural sense of fairness. You feel when an exchange is off, when someone is taking without giving, when a deal benefits one side too much. That instinct protects you from catastrophic losses, even if it occasionally costs you short-term gains. This doesn't mean dogs are risk-averse. It means you are risk-aware. You don't gamble with what you're responsible for. And that responsibility often includes more than just yourself, family, teams, clients, communities. Here's the challenge that dogs face, and it's important to address it honestly. Because you are reliable, people sometimes assume you will always carry the weight. They lean on you without adjusting compensation, authority, or recognition. Over time, this can quietly cap your income, not because you lack value, but because you've normalized over-delivery. The shift for dogs comes when you realize this: protection has a price, not an emotional price, an economic one. When you begin to set clearer boundaries about scope, responsibility, and reward, your financial situation changes, not because you become selfish, but because you bring balance back into the system. Dogs who thrive financially learn to do one crucial thing: they formalize trust. Agreements, roles, clear expectations. When trust becomes structured, it becomes scalable, and that's when income grows without draining you. Another fascinating aspect of dog energy is crisis advantage. Dogs often perform best when others panic. You think clearly when emotions rise. You prioritize what matters. You hold lines others abandon. And in moments of instability, the people who keep things from collapsing gain leverage that lasts long after the crisis passes. This is why dog wealth is often tied to timing, not speed. You may step forward at moments others avoid, and those moments redefine your trajectory. Here's something subtle I want you to reflect on. Dogs don't just protect people, they protect standards. When standards fall, systems decay. When standards hold, value remains. Over time, people who protect standards become trusted advisors, gatekeepers, and decision-makers. That's influence most people never see coming. Before we close this section, I want to ask you something, and I encourage you to answer honestly in the comments, because it often resonates deeply with others watching. Have you ever been the one holding things together while others moved on, only to realize later how much depended on you? That awareness is not accidental. It's the beginning of recognizing your true position. Being number one does not mean being the loudest. It means being the one things don't fall apart without. And that quietly, steadily is how dogs win. When the current pushes back. Not every year feels comfortable. And not every zodiac sign feels immediately supported by the same energy. That doesn't mean something is wrong, it means something is being asked of you. One of the most misunderstood ideas in Chinese astrology is the belief that alignment always feels good. In reality, misalignment is often where growth happens fastest. I've watched people struggle in years that technically favored them, and I've watched others thrive in years that challenged every instinct they had. The difference was never the sign, it was awareness. This part of the journey is for those whose energy doesn't naturally flow with the firehorse current, and for those who sense friction but don't yet understand why. Because resistance is not punishment, it's instruction. Too much fire, the horse's inner test. Horse years include 1954, 1966, 1978, 1990, 2002, 2014. And for those born under this sign, a firehorse cycle creates a unique tension. When the year mirrors your own energy, everything intensifies strengths and weaknesses alike. Here's the truth I've seen repeatedly. Horses don't struggle with opportunity, they struggle with direction. Your natural state is motion. You move before others decide. You act while others analyze. In everyday life, this shows up as restlessness, ambition, and a constant sense that something needs to happen now. During a firehorse year, that impulse doubles. The danger isn't failure, it's overcommitment. Too many decisions, too many risks layered on top of each other, too much speed without pause. This is why grounding becomes essential. Not stopping but slowing on purpose. Intentional speed is very different from impulsive movement. Horses who succeed in challenging years learn when to apply the brakes not out of fear, but out of strategy. In practical terms, this might mean delaying a decision by 1 day instead of 1 minute. Finishing what's already started before chasing the next idea. Creating routines that slow the body so the mind can lead. Fire burns brightest when it's contained. Horses who learn this turn intensity into power instead of exhaustion. Calm as currency, the rabbit's advantage. Rabbit years include 1951, 1963, 1975, 1987, 1999, 2011, and rabbit energy is often misunderstood as passive. In reality, rabbits are highly perceptive. You notice emotional shifts, subtle risks, and social undercurrents long before they become obvious. In fast, aggressive cycles, rabbits can feel pressured to act against their nature. The world says move faster, but your instinct says protect stability. Listen to that instinct. Your wealth advantage doesn't come from speed. It comes from preservation. I've seen rabbits quietly survive years that wiped others out financially, not because they earned more, but because they avoided unnecessary loss. You instinctively know when to conserve, when to wait, and when to say no. This year, cautious advancement wins. In daily life, this looks like strengthening savings instead of chasing high returns, choosing harmony over confrontation in financial partnerships, protecting mental and emotional energy as carefully as money rabbits don't win by being bold. They win by being intact when others are scattered. Clever, but not scattered, the monkey's edge. Monkey years include 1956, 1968, 1980, 1992, 2004, 2016, and monkeys are some of the most inventive thinkers in the zodiac. You see connections others miss, you find shortcuts, you adapt quickly. The challenge is not creativity, it's containment. Firehorse energy excites the monkey mind. Ideas multiply, opportunities appear everywhere. But wealth requires follow-through, not just brilliance. The monkeys who thrive learn to focus their cleverness. 1 or 2 creative income paths, not 10. One system that works, not endless experiments. I've noticed that monkeys often earn best when they treat ideas like seeds. Not every seed gets planted. Not every spark deserves fuel. When you choose deliberately, your intelligence compounds instead of fragmenting. In everyday terms, finish one project before starting another turns skills into repeatable income. Not one-off wins use structure as a tool. Not a limitation. Innovation needs a container. Monkeys who build one discover how powerful they really are. Enough is a strategy, the pig's wisdom. Pig years include 1959, 1971, 1983, 1995, 2007, 2019. And pig energy is often underestimated because it values comfort, enjoyment, and ease. But don't confuse that with weakness. Pigs understand something many people forget. Wealth that destroys peace is not wealth. In intense years, the pig's instinct is to protect well-being, to maintain balance, to avoid drama. This is not avoidance, it's sustainability. Your strength lies in steady security. While others take risks to feel alive, pigs build environments that feel safe. You invest in quality. You maintain relationships. You prioritize long-term comfort over short-term excitement. Financially, this shows up as choosing dependable income over volatile gains, avoiding debt that creates stress, investing in health, home, and support systems. Pigs often end up wealthier than expected, not because they chased money, but because they didn't sabotage it. Space shapes behavior. Now let's talk about something practical, because energy doesn't live only in charts. It lives in your environment. Feng Shui was never meant to be mystical decoration. It's behavioral architecture. Space influences decision-making more than people realize. When your surroundings are chaotic, your choices become reactive. When your space is intentional, your mind settles. You don't need to redesign your entire home. Small adjustments matter. Clearing clutter where decisions are made, adding stability to areas where finances are handled using light, texture, and order to reinforce calm or focused directional awareness matters too. Different parts of a space activate different aspects of life movement, rest, authority, wealth. Aligning these supports the choices you're already trying to make. Environment doesn't create destiny, but it supports discipline. The map is not the journey. Here's something I say often because it changes everything. Astrology is a map, not a sentence. A map shows terrain, hills, rivers, obstacles. It doesn't decide whether you walk, stop, or turn back. That part is always yours. I've seen people blame astrology for inaction, and I've seen others use it as leverage for extraordinary results. The difference was choice. Discipline matters more than prediction. Awareness matters more than luck. And action, consistent, intelligent action outweighs every forecast. The universe responds to motion, not intention alone. Wealth has a responsibility. At some point, money stops being about survival and starts being about impact. This is where many people get uncomfortable. Wealth is a tool. It amplifies who you already are. If you're thoughtful, it allows you to help more. If you're careless, it magnifies damage. Leadership, whether in family, business, or community, is about stewardship. Ethical success lasts. Extractive success collapses. The people I've seen build lasting prosperity understood this early. They treated people fairly. They honored commitments. They used influence consciously. Legacy is not what you accumulate. It's what remains stable because you were there. Choosing how you step forward. As the fire horse energy builds, the most important preparation isn't external, it's internal. Clarify what you actually want, not what sounds impressive. Identify actions that align with your nature, not what forces you into constant resistance. Build courage slowly, with wisdom, not bravado. Ask yourself, what am I ready to commit to fully? What needs to be simplified, not expanded? Those answers shape everything that follows. A final word before you go. Every year carries a certain kind of power, but what most people don't realize is that power is neutral. It doesn't automatically help or harm, it amplifies. It magnifies whatever approach you bring into it. This is why two people can live through the same year and come out with completely different results. One feeling expanded and confident, the other exhausted and confused. The fire horse energy is especially revealing in this way. It doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It doesn't slow down to match hesitation. But it also doesn't demand recklessness. What it responds to is clarity, clear intention, clear direction, clear awareness of who you are and how you move through the world. Waiting for the perfect moment in a year like this often leads to frustration, because momentum builds whether you participate or not. At the same time, charging forward without reflection creates unnecessary strain. This is where many people get it wrong. They think the choice is between speed and safety. It isn't. The real choice is between conscious movement and unconscious reaction. When you move with awareness, the year starts working with you. You notice patterns earlier. You make adjustments before small problems become large ones. You recognize which opportunities align with your nature and which ones will drain you, no matter how attractive they look on the surface. In that state, even challenges feel purposeful. They teach instead of overwhelm. But when movement comes from pressure, comparison, or fear of being left behind, the same energy feels chaotic. Decisions pile up. Energy scatters. Progress feels forced rather than supported. This isn't because the year is against you, it's because you're moving without a compass. So step forward deliberately, not slower than necessary, not faster than you can sustain. Adjust when something feels off. Refine your approach as you learn more about what works and what doesn't. Trust your natural instincts, but don't confuse instinct with habit. Growth often asks us to sharpen what we already have, not abandon it. And remember this above all else, you are not here to outrun the year. You are not in a race against time, other people, or expectations. You are here to ride the energy skillfully to stay balanced while moving forward. Stay present, stay conscious. And whatever your zodiac sign, use this powerful momentum to build something that doesn't just look successful from the outside, but feels stable, meaningful, and right to live with from the inside.